On this episode, Princeton men's tennis coach Billy Pate stops by. Hey everybody, I'm Tarek Merchant and this is the IMRecruitable show. I'm here with Coach Billy Pate from Princeton University men's tennis. Thanks for joining me, Billy.
My pleasure.
So we have a bunch of listeners, viewers, everybody's interested to learn more about college coaches, and so this is a great opportunity for us to sit down with you for a few minutes. And why don't we start off by getting a quick background about your career as a tennis player and how you got into college coaching.
Sure, yeah, I started out, I grew up originally in Arkansas and ended up going to Mississippi State and played for Coach Jackson, who is now the Arkansas coach. He was here this week, so it's always great. It's always like old home week when you come to Kalamazoo, see maybe your old coach, some of the guys you competed against when you played. So I started there, in terms of my college career, but I wasn't sure I was going to be a college coach. In fact, that was probably the last thing. I remember Coach Jackson driving us in the van and a bunch of smelly guys. Like, this doesn't look like a very good job, but later, you kind of discover it's a really cool job. And I think back then too, it wasn't certainly wasn't as lucrative, or without the internet really back then when I played. I mean, I'm pretty old now, but you didn't have the exposure quite so much, so it wasn't as big of a deal in a way, even though there were some incredible programs and great players. But I moved to Atlanta, and that's actually where I met your cameraman there, Brett. And I remember when he was a 10-year-old playing, and I was coaching, but I was really going into sports management, sports marketing, maybe going to be an athletic director, potentially an agent for tennis.
Okay.
Kind of looked at all those things. Went to graduate school at Georgia State in sports administration, and again was really going to the sports business field. And Atlanta was booming. The Olympics were on the way, and so that's what. And I just kind of sort of fell into this job as a junior college coach at the time it was DeKalb College, and they changed their name to Georgia Perimeter, and ended up taking the job and taught class at the junior college. And we ended up being pretty good. I was there 5 years as the head coach. So I started as a head coach, which I think was really cool. I tell people, if you ever get a chance to do that, it's really fun.
You never were assistant.
I was after this, but my first college job technically was this junior college. So it was like great training ground because there wasn't really a lot of pressure, and there certainly wasn't much salary. I think I was making $4,500 a year. I made a lot more teaching lessons, obviously, and doing those things, so I could do the college job. And then I taught class. I just finished my master's, so I taught class at the junior college. So that was really fun. And those were some of my fondest memories of coaching college, because it was just all new and fresh, and you could make mistakes and sort of you could make up for them later, hopefully. But we ended up being pretty good, and I got really competitive about it. And by my last 3 years there, we won the national junior college title.
Nice.
And but I loved Atlanta. Atlanta is still, I consider like a home to me. I don't make it back as much as I like, but it was such a tennis mecca, as we all know. And at any rate, so I started looking, if I want to stay in this, and I think I do full time, then I need to look around. And I happened to meet up with an old friend, Coach Bayless from Notre Dame, at the NCAA's in Athens that year. And we just finished our national championship, and I went straight over there and met with him, and we had a great meeting. I flew up to South Bend. I'd never been to South Bend, and I loved it, and I thought it was a really unique move, a unique place. I mean, a place steeped in history and tradition. I loved it, so I signed on right away. I was there 2 years. We were very fortunate to have a lot of success.
Yeah.
And then I took the Alabama job and was there 10 years, and then after 10 years there, great 10 years there, great experience too. Another place with great athletic tradition.
Yeah.
Really fun, and then Princeton came open, and I thought that was a really cool place, and you could tell these kids behind us, and all these kids around the world really were looking at high academics, and that's a great place to be, and I want to be close to New York City, so then I took the Princeton job. So anyway, here I am, now going in, I guess, my 24th year of college coaching coming up. So I'm getting to be I used to be one of the younger guys, now I'm getting to be one of the older guys.
Yeah, so big transition. And so coaching at a place like Alabama versus Princeton, as you mentioned, the academics, that process is different. The type of players that you're looking for is different. Can you explain to me a little bit how the Ivy system works?
Sure. I think one of the things that attracted me to the Ivies was the no scholarship kind of deal. For people out there who don't know, and maybe most do, but the Ivy Leagues, even though we're Division I, some people ask you Division I.
Yeah.
We're Division I. We can compete against pretty
It's like,
much
how do you not have scholarships then?
Right.
Is it the only group or a conference and group that doesn't offer scholarships, right?
Division I conference,
Yeah.
yes. And I think that was just the sort of the founding philosophy of the Ivy. And people got to realize that the Ivy Leagues, way back around 1900, early 1900s, they were really, up until like probably the middle of the century, really dominating college athletics in a way. Because if you look back on the history of college athletics, the privileged played athletics. And so that was really kind of how it all came about. And but it's cool from a tennis standpoint because, we can, again, compete with just about anybody. We're sort of more on even footing, we feel like. And I've told many people here this week that how do you deal with not having scholarships? The financial aid's gotten really good.
Right.
We're really fortunate. So some families, they've really targeted, if they can get maybe some kids who maybe don't think they can afford it, families don't think that they can, there's really attractive financial aid packages where they probably can if they have a need.
Right.
And of course you have to get in. So obviously the admissions quite tough, but just like we were talking about, there's so many kids here that are very smart. There's a ton that are seeking the highest level academics, and I think kids in tennis know that it's very challenging to be a professional.
Right.
I mean, they're smart. They know that most kids know what it's going to take, and we want them to have that dream. Even though if they come to Ivy, we actually sell it maybe almost like the opposite way. We're like, hey, yeah, just because you're coming to Ivy, you have the degree to go try it.
Right.
If you go 4 years and
it's a good point.
And you have a great Ivy League diploma, well, you're going to have those contacts. They'll still be there. So why not go try it then? So that sort of attracted me to the Ivies, and it's been really, and the Ivies have really grown.
I think years ago, even when I was in college, early 2000s, it was kind of like, okay, I'm a really great academic student, and I'm a good tennis player, but not the same level as maybe an SEC school, ACC school, so I can go Ivy. But now, you guys are almost all the Ivies are ranked, nationally, and some of them in the top 20, 30.
Right.
So it's now the highest level of academics and the highest level of tennis.
Right.
So the players really have to be the best in both, right? And we're seeing that now that they're able to do that, right? More and more.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So the type of players that you're looking to get, obviously there's a certain academic minimum, but outside of the academics and even the athletic level, what other characteristics do you look for in a player that you would want to put on your team?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's very consistent for the most part with what every coach out here is looking for. We certainly want talent. I mean, that's obvious, right?
Yeah.
And you want to see results. I think tennis is a very result-oriented type of sport. If you see a track record of a lot of results, but besides the obvious things there, I think you're looking at the grit, the resiliency of the player, how they bounce back, and that's really important for us personally. I mean, or in the Ivies, I feel like there's a lot of stress associated with the high academics, so we want to see them to be able to balance it, to really be able to manage that, to handle it. It's an overused cliche, but to really be able to have that ability to bounce back when things don't go well, when you don't get as much sleep, and you're still having to do tennis at a very high level. The one thing I always counter with is that we don't quite have, we're very social still. I mean, you can still find your fun
Sure.
in an Ivy League, but it's not like some schools where I think the party culture is maybe a lot more. And so we always say as coaches, you can only do 2 of those 3 things well, and maybe some schools you can do all 3, but certainly not at our place. I think you really do have to focus on those things. But I think it keeps you a lot more, it's like a more wholesome environment. It's sometimes more challenging in a way, but you can certainly do it. And it's been done. We had a player that played for us a few years ago, got to 2 in college tennis, was out there on the tour, almost cracked the top 2, he was like 206, so and now he's at Harvard Business School. He was great. There's a lot of guys like that can do it if they really are that ambitious, and they do have the talent and time management and are really love tennis. I think you have to love tennis wherever you go, but particularly at an Ivy.
Yeah, laser focused, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so players want to get better, right? And you just mentioned players can go, whether it's Ivy or other teams. I mean, there is a pathway if you're good enough to play professionally or to be the best you can be. How does one, UTR has become very popular as a measuring gauge, and you mentioned, whether it's an American or an international player, because tennis is very international. You are getting players on every team
Sure.
that are Americans and internationals. So do you use that UTR as an initial guide? How do you use UTR with first, sort of recruiting or scouting players?
Yeah, I think most coaches would agree. It's probably certainly one of the best metrics we have, if not the best metric. Everybody can argue different ways. I mean, you may say it's a little bit off, and certainly it's not going to be perfect. No system's perfect.
Right.
But I think it's been the best thing for us in terms of establishing an international level to assess a player's ability. And then I think, what we do, I don't know how other coaches do it specifically, but I like to, if somebody plays ITS, okay, I can look at their ITF results and their ranking, combine with the UTR, combine maybe with the tennis recruiting ranking, their stars, and then of course the USTA standings and maybe the country's ranking. So if you kind of put a whole list, a spreadsheet, if you will, of all these things, you can kind of lay it out in front of you and
see who they're playing at different events, and you probably know the names of some of the other players, right? And you can get a much better gauge. And so how does a player, whether it's on your team or whether it's a junior, how do they go one UTR level, let's say, or one, jump up in the rankings? Let's say they're a 12 and they want to be a 13. How on the development side does one move up one level better?
Well, I think probably if you get a player that has less technical flaws, that they don't have as many holes in their game that you have to address, or you have somebody that has an ability, an athletic ability, or strength that you can really develop, like obviously a serve plus forehand that's really strong. I think having opportunities to do that, and what I mean by opportunities are we scheduling as coaches to putting our player, each player should have their own player development profile with each coach, right, of what we're trying to do with your game or his game, and then building a schedule that would help you, whether it's the futures or in the summer or ITA summer circuit or the fall tournaments we play in college tennis, or certainly the team matches we play, which we're going to have a very certainly very competitive national. And of course you got to be in the lineup, but I think it's hard if you guys really not really playing in the lineup. We got to find them opportunities. So I think putting them in a position where they can play and play a lot of matches. So I mean, there's no better way to get better than playing a lot of matches, but with the coach, with the individual improvements we're going to make in individual sessions and team practice. And I think to that end, we've started to kind of almost, we don't go away from team practice completely, but I think a lot of programs have done, we do sort of a team group practice, like, or individual group practice. So maybe 4 guys come during different parts of the day. So myself and 2 other coaches can work with 4 guys, and maybe we spend more time on the court through the day instead of a team practice and a few individuals. But I think that's been better, and then we can really address those individual needs in still a group setting, if that makes sense. Yeah,
totally. What's your coaching philosophy? If someone comes to Billy Pate's program, no matter what school he's at, what's Billy Pate's philosophy as a college coach? What does he want to do with his team? What does he want those players to take away after they've spent 4 years with you?
Yeah, I think I look back and I had a pretty good college experience. And probably a lot of it I could have been better because my own missteps of not being laser focused, of maybe socializing too much. I probably did that way too much in college and things of that nature. But
I think we're all guilty of that.
Right. But I think having fun. So when you speak to that, like trying to make sure the players are, if you're enjoying it seems like probably something that's so simple, but just say, are you having fun? And if the players aren't really enjoying the moment, then that's tough, and you have to have those conversations. So that there's a lot of stress involved in wherever they are. So I want to keep it loose to a point, but still very organized and still have practice on point, but I want to be efficient. I want them to get what they need in a very efficient time frame.
Right.
And I want them to play with a lot of energy and passion for the game and be good teammates. And so then we got to get into the culture. And what I want to do is we want to have a kind of a certain culture. And we may only be able to attract a certain number of guys at a certain level to get into Princeton every year, but we really got to vet those and get the right ones that we think are going to build a culture that's going to help us succeed.
And what kind of culture is that? But like, you know, in detail, let's say, give me some more. Like, I know some coaches, they're more into when they build the culture within the team, they want their team to be loud and energetic, and some are more about, you know, just the bonding and we can sort of win quietly. There's different ways that it works. How does it work with you?
Yeah, well, I think number one is have guys that are great guys to be around. Okay, I don't want, you know, parents and players ask me all the time, you come to Kalamazoo and maybe we're watching 15 guys, they're like, wow, you're watching a lot of guys, I want to be one of the top ones you're watching. Well, yeah, you might be. I mean, one guy's going to throw his racket over the fence, one guy's going to probably say, you know, smart off to his coach or his parent, and the college coaches are watching, we're like, that one's gone, you know. So you know, character and integrity and what do their values stand for. So we want some really good values, and because we want to have these guys who are going to, because let's be honest, not everybody's going to be a professional and really successful on the tour. Very few are, right? So what are they going to do in life? What kind of people are they going to be 40 years from now, right? To come back to our program, their kids come back to our program, to visit campus, and so you really got to think about the big picture there. So we're kind of thinking with the end in mind a little bit, and where they're going, and that's what we tell people. This is not a 4-year decision; it's a 40, 50-year decision when you go to Princeton. So it's like a family. So we want them representing that family really well. So sportsmanship is really crucial. So that should be a hallmark of every program. But that's something I really want. I want to have good guys. I want to have guys that I like being around, but like to be around each other and are going to push each other. So that gets to being, if they love you like a brother, then they're going to cheer for you. They're going to support you even if they're not in the lineup, or maybe you're not in the lineup and you're supporting your teammate or a doubles partner. So I think that's really crucial to have that energy, because I think you do have to have some energy. I don't think you have to be over the top, but we certainly like a lot of energy, and it's fun, right?
Right.
So that's when it gets back to the fun thing, a 3-letter word that, you know, people kind of miss out on. So I think those are some of the things that we look at when we talk about culture. Yeah, but obviously a player development plan too, because we want them playing. We want guys that love tennis, so they're playing in the summer. And I know it's hard because in the Ivies, a lot of these guys are looking at their classmates who aren't athletes, and they're going to internship in the summer. They're looking to do other things. And am I going to get this job? It's like who they're being compared to.
Right.
So they're compared to brilliance. Right.
It's tough.
But we have to kind of take a step back. Hey, look, you're going to be fine. But let's focus on the tennis. We're the tennis coaches here. We're all about the academics, but we're also all about the tennis, and we want to make sure we're maximizing it. So we want you playing in the summer. A lot of matches, a lot of tournaments. Again, going back to the most you can improve is just by playing a lot of matches, and then they're fresh when they come back, hopefully, or sharp when they come back in the fall, ready to play and tackle the year.
Yeah, and I think that's where you talked efficiency. I think that's so important.
Yeah.
The fact that you as a coach can still give them all the value they need, but they are efficient for the job, you know, the internships they're doing, and then in the classroom. So that's great advice. Let's have some fun here. Let's ask you about your best college tennis story, either as a player or a coach. You got something?
You know, going back again to when I coached at junior college, when it was so new and it was just, you're so almost innocent, you're new to the sport almost, or, you know, the industry, I guess, and we had a bunch of, you know, some ragtag guys that, you know, and at junior college, a lot of guys that couldn't speak English well. And, you're just helping, and you're becoming, like, it's interesting because I talk a lot of my coaching colleagues who bring in some kids who maybe aren't as academically strong, and they really become like a father to them. And, and a lot of my guys they're pretty self-sufficient. And I want to help them in that way, but they are pretty self-sufficient.
Yeah, it's a different dynamic.
Yeah, so I look back at those times. It was really, really fun because I became kind of like, you know, they're away from home, and I'm kind of, you know, leading them, and and I probably didn't know what I was doing back then, so it was really fun. But winning the national championships, when we did, that was really fun, you know, and I think we've had a lot of other fun in various times. And, you know, of course, I think coaches, you kind of remember the worst losses too. Yeah. You know, I'm haunted by, I'm telling you, every coach, if you ask them their 5 worst, they could reel them off because it sticks with you. Where the wins, they'll stick with you too, but almost not as much as the losses. They hurt, they still sting, you know, this day. So but
you learn from your failures, right? You sure and I think that's why you remember them, because you don't want to be there again. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
And what's the best piece of advice that you can? I mean, you've given great advice already throughout this discussion, but if you had to pick one thing or one avenue, you know, what's the best piece of advice you give for these athletes and their parents, especially kids going through the process of trying to find a great team and a great college and then reaping those benefits?
Yeah, I think it's easy for them to be stressed out. I mean, there's plenty of options. You know, I think kids center too much on a few options. Maybe if they're academically inclined, there's a certain group of academic schools they're looking at, and that's fair. But they probably aren't thinking about school XYZ that they haven't even thought about, or a geographic region. Just being really open and understanding that. And I think that one of the biggest things that we like to see is transparency in the conversations.
Yeah.
So if somebody says, if I'm recruiting you and you said, you know what, you're not going to be an option for me, I just, for whatever reason, okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Or you're not going to be an option for us, or it's not going to work out. Getting that information communicated early helps both parties move to the next one.
Exactly.
So I think just being really honest. So I think kids need to be honest too. And I think for these, these kids, these young men, or when you're 17 and you're having to tell somebody no, it's probably the first time you've had to say tell somebody no. It's probably the first big decision you're making in your life. So that's a big one. But we do also want to hear from the young man. Okay, so I'm very, I won't say critical, but I have a colleague of mine who will not respond if the parent's right first. He wants to hear from the kid first. He will not respond at all. So that's good advice. We need to hear from that kid who we will coach for you. Now, granted, the parents have to be a major part of this, financially.
Of course,
the support system.
And I think every school, depending, like you said, financials or a certain system, they have to be involved. There's a portion for them. But like you said, I think it's transparency. I push that so much whenever I meet families and kids or I do speeches, because you need to know. It helps both parties, and a lot of 17-year-olds, like you said, or whatever age they are when they're about to enter, they're nervous, they're scared to tell you no.
Yeah.
But I think one time a coach told a group of kids actually that we get no more than yes, so we're okay with no if it's not the right fit, and vice versa. You need to be okay with no as well, because you're only going to pick one place and you want to have options, but it's not always going to be the right fit, right?
That's right. Right. No, I think keeping your options open and really diving into the process, and obviously knowing everything you can about that process and doing your research. It's so easy to research and then being realistic. Looking at UTR is a great guide, and like to use your example, if you're one level below their 7 or 8 player potential, their coaches are always looking to get better, right?
That's right.
So they're looking for somebody better. So and I know that's frustrating too, because I know you hear a lot of criticism, a lot, I'm sure you do. Yeah. Parents are like, oh, you're all about the rankings or the rating, but I think it is the thing that people miss out on. Once you get up to the level that we're recruiting, and all these coaches, you're recruiting at an awfully high level, especially this stage of the tournament. You're talking about 13 level UTR and higher. It's really hard to get to 14, right?
That's right.
14 is like almost pretty much a pro player almost, it's considering playing professional. So all these college coaches are looking for that. So the air gets a little bit thin. It's like climbing a mountain. It's hard. Once you get 12 to 13 maybe, but then 13 to 14, that's a big jump. That's a hard
true.
jump.
It's
so
a very
when you
hard
start
jump.
talking about the one jump, that's a big jump. So,
that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
When you get really good, it's like more the incremental gains you make.
Exactly. We've been talking that with coaches here at this event too. Yeah, maybe you go from 8 to 9 pretty quickly, or 9 to 10, but once you get to that higher level, it's those really little things similar to a pro. Once you crack the top 10 to get to top 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it's really difficult. So I can't agree with you more, and appreciate all the advice. Everybody, ladies and gentlemen, Coach Billy Pate, Princeton University, thanks so much for joining me.
Pleasure being here.
Appreciate all the advice and the discussion.